Welcome to episode 1 of the Agentforce Revenue Management Hands-on course. In this series, we are not going to memorize menus or configure features without a business reason. We are going to build one coherent subscription business from product model through pricing, sales, fulfillment, billing, and renewal. Our business is Cumulus Lab, a B2B SaaS company that sells cloud security services. By the end of the series, it will be able to sell a subscription, add services, apply a volume rule, fulfill the order, bill the customer, and manage the customer relationship over time. One naming note before we begin, Salesforce now calls this product Agentforce Revenue Management. You may still encounter Revenue Cloud or Revenue Lifecycle Management in an org, in a trailhead unit, or in an older documentation. Treat those as vocabulary signals to verify, not as a reason to assume two separate products. This episode gives you three things. First, a mental model of the complete revenue lifecycle. Second, a way to turn a business request into configuration decision. Third, a safe way to verify that your learning of has the capability we need before we start building. What we are not doing today is configuring a catalog, a price adjustment, a quote, or an invoice. That restraint matters. In real implementation, most expensive rework happens when teams start clicking before they agree on the commercial model. At the end of this video, you have to complete a lab. In the demo org, I'll show you the pre-seeded fictional customer account and contact. Then we are going to go through the solution brief also. Let's meet Cumulus Lab. It sells Edge Protect platform as a 12-month subscription, advanced threat analytic as an optional add-on, and implementation kickoff as a one-time service. Northstar Retail is our first customer. It wants 300 protected endpoints. That volume is important because Cumulus Lab gives a lower unit price at 250 endpoints or above. Northstar also want implementation scheduled after the order is accepted, recurring charges invoiced, and a renewal conversation 90 days before the subscription ends. Everything in the course traces back to those facts. The point is not to create toy records. The point is to make each configuration choice explainable to a sales rep, an operations specialist, and a finance user. Most companies do not start with one connected process. Product details live in spreadsheet. Sales uses a separate quoting tool. Operations receive an email or a ticket after the deal is signed. Finance has to reconstruct what was sold before it can invoice. Then at renewal time, nobody can easily explain the customer current entitlement. Agentforce Revenue Management exists to make those stages work from a connected commercial model. It does not eliminate business decisions. It makes a decision explicit, reusable, and visible to the team that needs them. As you learn the product, measure progress by a simple standard. Can we explain what was sold, why it was priced that way, what must happen next, and what the customer owns? If the answer is no, the process is not yet connected. Here is a life cycle we will use throughout the course. We model products first, then we price and configure them. A customer transaction is captured as a quote or order. That commercial commitment becomes the basis of contracts and asset. The business fulfills the promise. It may measure consumption or usage. It bills the customer. Finally, it handles a change, renewal, or cancellation. Do not read this as a rigid straight line. In a real subscription business, customers amend, upgrade, renew, and sometimes cancel. The discipline is to preserve the relationship between the original promise, the current customer entitlement, and the financial result. For Cumulus Lab, the subscription and the add-on begin in the product model. The 250 endpoint rule belongs in pricing. Provisioning and onboarding belong in fulfillment. The 90-day outreach belongs in the contract or asset lifecycle. Each decision has a home. Salesforce groups the product around several capability areas. Product catalog management is the source of truth for commercial offering. Salesforce pricing calculates prices and adjustment. Product configurator helps users select valid combinations. Transaction management covers commercial transactions such as quotes, orders, contracts, and assets. Dynamic revenue orchestra coordinates fulfillment. Usage management and billing support consumption and financial operations. You do not need to configure every capability to start learning. In fact, you should not. Our course begin with product catalog and pricing because all downstream processes depend on stable commission model. Later, we will also discuss where Salesforce platform capability fits. Flow for automation permission, integration for external system, and reporting for operational visibility. Platform tools extend the revenue process. They are not a substitute for defining the process. Revenue management is a cross-functional implementation. Product operation owns the definition of what can be sold. Pricing or finance own commercial rules. Sales owns the customer conversation and transaction. Operations owns fulfillment. Finance owns invoicing and financial controls. Customer success owns the ongoing relationship. The Salesforce administrator is not expected to invent these policies. The administrator translates approved policies into a durable configuration, asks where ambiguity exists, and protects the data needed for each team to do its work. For the Cumulus Lab scenario, ask every team one question. What information must still be true after the sale? The answer becomes a record relationship and controls we build later. Also, just use the current label Agentforce Revenue Management in your course titles and current narration, but expect older names during research. Salesforce has explicitly stated that documentation and application areas can still refer to Revenue Cloud. In some Salesforce org, you may encounter Revenue Lifecycle Management as well. The operational rule is simple: validate the capability, not just the label. When someone says that I cannot find the app, have them search for the product terms, check setup, and then confirm their auth and enable feature. Before building, capture the business decision in a brief. For Cumulus Lab, we need a base subscription, an optional add-on, a one-time service, a 12-month term, a protected endpoint quantity, a volume price rule, a fulfill outcome, a renewal trigger, and a billing outcome. Notice the difference between requirement and a feature. For example, give a lower price at 250 endpoint is a business rule. Use a price adjustment schedule may later be an implementation choice. Start with the requirement, then learn the product capability that expresses it. This is a habit worth taking into every Salesforce project. When a stakeholder asks for automation, ask what decision it should make, which data it needs, who owns the rule, and how you will know it worked. Let's now jump into Salesforce and verify. So I'm now in Salesforce. Verify that you have an app by name Revenue Lifecycle Management, or search for Agentforce. we do not have. So we have Revenue Lifecycle Management. Select that. Let's go to the next one. Now let's look into the hands-on lab. So this is our hands-on lab. Over here, just to reiterate, the scenario is you are a Salesforce admin for Cumulus Lab. There's a fictional B2B SaaS company selling cloud security service in Northstar Retail. So Northstar Retail is an account. Let's check. Do I have Northstar Retail as an account? If not, then I will create a Northstar Retail as an account. So this is my Northstar Retail as an account. Over here, minimum information is populated like website, which industry it is, and also in the related, we have got a contact by name Jordan. With respect to Jordan, we have populated email and it belongs to Northstar Retail. So just to reiterate, Northstar Retail wants Edge Protect platform as a 12-month subscription, Advanced Threat Analytic as an optional add-on, implementation kickoff as one-time service, a 15% volume discount at 250 or more protected endpoints, a renewal conversation 90 days before the subscription ends. Now, this entire thing we are going to implement in the course. This was about making sure we have relevant app. Then we cross-check we have got Northstar as an account. If not, then we will create an account and contact with these values, but we do have in our org. And also just remember this thing that we are going to implement. Customer is Northstar Retail. Base offering is Edge Protect platform subscription. Optional add-on is Advanced Threat Analytic. One-time service is implementation kickoff. Subscription term is 12 months. Unit of measure is protective endpoint. Volume policy is apply a 15% reduction at 250 or more endpoints. Fulfillment outcome, provision the subscription and schedule implementation. Renewal trigger is contact the customer 90 days before subscription ends. Finance outcome, invoice recurring subscription charges and the one-time service. So let's close. Agentforce Revenue Management connects the product to cash lifecycle, but it only works when commercial rules are explicit. We are using Cumulus Labs to turn that abstract lifecycle into a real repeatable implementation. We verify the learning environment and identify the teams, capture the business model before configuring. After you completed the lab, in episode 2, we will create the Cumulus Lab product catalog. We will translate Edge Protect platform, advanced threat analytics, and implementation kickoff into a product model, then validate that sales can discover the right offering before we introduce pricing rule.